1200 WOAI. This is Sidebar. Former Bexar County DA NICO JORGE, trial lawyer, managing partner of the LaHood Norton Law Group, and George Arujo scholar, former chemist, pharmaceutical researcher, and director. And I guess I have some questions today for the show. The question is, what is a cheap fake? That's question number one. Do the 10 Commandments hurt your feelings? And if so, how? And then finally, how will amnesty for 500,000 people affect this upcoming election? Can we fit the answers to all of those questions in today's show? Deep fake, cheap fake, what was it? I can't remember. I
didn't even know what the hell that meant. I had to look it up and try to figure it out, and I still don't really know. It sounds like a pump fake to me, is what it sounds like. You know, like a pump fake in boxing or at least basketball, really, a pump fake. But the cheap, I don't know. I mean, apparently it's don't believe your lying eyes, because what is reality isn't reality, even though we're saying it's reality, though it's not actual reality. It's my subjective reality. Forget your objective reality. I mean, it's one of those Abbott and Costello, who's on first, who's on second skits to me, because I really was trying to understand, because I wanted to get to the crux of what she was saying, or what the administration is trying to say. And apparently it's a video or some type of evidence that's actually genuine, but their allegation, and correct me if I'm wrong, George, that it's altered in some way to convey a different message, to kind of a deceiving message. So I guess they're talking. It seems like it's fake news on steroids. I don't know, but
I want to know that too.
Media manipulation casebook has defined it as altered media, right?
Okay.
Altered media that does not require advanced technology.
But how do you...
Things like photoshopping, for instance.
But how do you Photoshop the president facing the wrong direction?
And that's where it falls apart, because they're trying to say that these repeated videos where Biden sort of vacillates between complete confusion and being completely frozen which are obvious to most reasonable people of his continuous decline in mental acuity. They're saying all that's just sort of... What did you say? Don't believe your lying eyes.
Yeah.
That this is all a figment of the imagination. And so, you know, what's going on here? Is this an effective strategy? Does that seem like a
why is this even being discussed is what I want to talk about, because why would they even make this up to say that it was happening unless there was some motive?
Well, because it's happening. So you have to.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to come up with some defense. I mean, it's almost like the criminal defense lawyer that has to come up with a defense, even though there's not much of a defense there. It's their ethical and legal obligation to defend their client zealously. I guess they're zealously trying to represent their client, meaning the president. I'm just using that analogy, because you can't deny it. I mean, you see what you see, and people are talking about it. People are speaking about it. The G7, I mean, even the people around the world, we're a laughingstock. Again, forget Democrat, Republican for a second. Just if you think of whoever is the leader of the free world, which is supposed to be the United States, even though it feels less free and free every month, it seems like. But this is embarrassing to us. I mean, you know, I think he gave like some type of googie nose hug to the Pope and with weird forehead thing.
Ew.
I mean, it's just weird. The dude, he's acting weird. He salutes the Italian prime minister and puts his glasses on and then looks out over here and then looks out over there, and he's talking to a parachuter that's not talking to him, and then she has to drag him back, and then Jill Biden has to take him off stage after, I know the jokes, that he crapped his pants or whatever, I have no idea. But, I mean, there's funny videos out there, I get it. But it was awkward movement, whether he's trying to fake in a chair, sit in a chair that's not there, shake a hand of somebody that's not there, or you have, you know, former President Obama walking him off the stage at a fundraiser. There's theories behind why he did that. I mean, so we can talk, but it's happening. So you can't deny it. So they have to say something to distract. It's almost like saying, hey, the economy's good. Like the Bidenomics? No, it's not. What's wrong with you? What are you talking about? The economy's good for everybody else. Well, I don't know who everybody else is, because it sucks for me. What are you talking about? And then it's like, well, maybe the economy's good. I guess it's good. Well, what was wrong with me? I guess I'm the stupid one. The economy's good. That's what it seems to me, George. And I know this comes out of George Orwell's book there, when you think about 1984, and I know the reference keeps coming up, seems like week after week. Two quotes that I thought were interesting. He says, the party told you to reject the evidence of your eyes and your ears. It was their final, most essential command. Then another one is, power is in tearing human minds to pieces and putting them together again in new shapes of their own choosing. That's what you feel like is happening, not just on this issue, but just issues in general. That's my humble opinion.
Yeah, war is peace, freedom is slavery, and ignorance is strength. It's a war on the obvious. And as we were texting about this topic, you know, I kind of double down on that because I think that's what's concerning when there's nothing left. I mean, what else is it? Why would they do it? What else is Biden going to do? I mean, what sector of the economy, what sector of national life, what sector of foreign policy isn't on fire right now? So what else is there? And if you say what I just said, right, the problem's mine, it's not theirs. And this is old. I saw an article. This is what prompted my text to you guys, and you guys didn't respond, so you must have been very busy at the time because you both live very, very busy lives.
Sorry.
No, but I texted to you guys and I said, because I don't know, it's driving me crazy right now because I can't think of it, but I thought it was a Fox article that said that this was a new strategy from the White House. That the reference to cheap fakes denotes some sort of a shift, a new strategy, and I'm like, there's absolutely nothing new about this.
What strategy could
ancient.
it be?
NICO brings up George Orwell, and a lot of people invoke George Orwell. You're invoking it appropriately. I've seen people on the left and people on the right invoke it. I always think it's hilarious when people on the left invoke it because it is a treatise against communism. It is specifically against the Sovietization of Russia. And so Big Brother is Joey Stalin. Okay, so there's no confusion about what the book's about, and so he went on and on, George Orwell did, and he discussed the tactics that were used at suppressing freedoms in Russia and really dehumanizing people. And he goes, you know, literally category by category by category, tactic by tactic, and this is a tactic.
Yeah.
Ultimately, you call your citizens, in their case, subjects, a bunch of idiots.
Yep.
You basically say, you really are as dumb as you look. No, that actually didn't happen. I know there's 100 videos, and I know they're all consistent. There's no way they could be orchestrated. I mean, Barack Obama, on the latest one that I saw, he's at a fundraising event.
Walking him up the stage.
And it's obvious. Now, that by itself isn't obvious, but you put that into a fact pattern. Oh, my goodness, Obama's sitting there, and Joe Biden is literally sitting there for 20 to 30 very uncomfortable seconds with this frozen smile. While Obama's doing the exact opposite, he's walking around, he's waving to people, he's engaging, and then he kind of walks over, you know, sideways over to Biden, grabs his hand like a little boy,
Yes,
and literally escorts him off the stage, puts his arm around him, is talking to him. Biden isn't responding except just sort of walking. And it's obvious.
But George, we've seen this over and over again.
Normal.
We've seen that with Jill. She's there as, I mean, she's
Absolutely,
a necessary
she is.
person in this administration.
She's his handler.
Even the Easter Bunny. I wonder if it was Obama in the Easter Bunny
Absolutely.
outfit. I mean, I don't say that facetiously, but
Obama.
remember that during the Easter celebration 2 years ago? And then he's talking way too much, and the Easter Bunny comes over there like, what the hell does the Easter Bunny care about what the president's doing? Hey, go be the Easter Bunny. Give out your eggs or whatever. But the Easter Bunny is there under, you know, kind of working the ropes and saying, come on, Mr. President. Oh, go that way. And then he goes that way. So to George's point, that's happening more. And I've heard there's always these theorists out there that Obama, I think, from what I saw, I think Obama just had to get into to action. He's like, oh crap, you know, Joe's going through another moment. And then he had to get in there to get him off stage. I'm sure it was like, if this happens, get him off stage. I'm just assuming, I don't know. But other people that theorize saying that's Obama saying, hey guys, don't worry, donors, I'm really in control. Yeah, I'm still in charge. I'm still running the show. He's just here for, who knows? I mean, could it have been both? Maybe. I don't know.
I think it's appropriate to point out, since you've brought that up, because I think it's relevant, it's appropriate to point out that the person who actually started that idea, that somehow Obama's secretly in charge, was Barack Obama himself. He was in an interview, and he was asked the hypothetical question of, hey, would you like to come back in the ring here for a third term? He goes, actually, if it was up to me, and if I'm just sort of blue sky in this thing, I would love somebody to be out there, and I can kind of be in the background.
Yep, he said it.
And I'm paraphrasing, but I am on issue.
No, I know.
I'm not misleading in any way. And he says, I'd sort of like to be in the background, and I'm kind of influencing what's being said. I'm basically influencing priorities. That would be ideal for me. And so if you look at Biden, and you look, he's clearly not cognitively there.
Yeah.
And this, Nico, you mentioned Jill Biden.
Jill?
The woman drives me nuts. Yes, the fake doctor, DED, doctor, Jill Biden, doctor. That Joe Biden. I don't know any spouse that would be okay with the spouse that they that supposedly dearly loved, they've been married to over 40 years, with dragging her husband out in public under these circumstances. He's not well. He needs compassion. He should be in a home, not in an Oval Office. He needs loving, tender attention and care. That's what the man needs right now. I don't understand why Jill Biden thinks this is okay. I don't.
Cha-ching.
I really don't. And so I've not heard any commentary on that, because ultimately she wields a lot of
you have to
influence.
acknowledge it first before you comment on something that's not there again, right? But let's be fair. McConnell needs to go out too. McConnell's in the same boat. Do you see him freeze up a few months back or last year?
We're putting a list together.
Well, no, I mean, let's just call balls and strikes. I mean, McConnell needs to get the hell out of there also. He's worthless, in my opinion. And so let's just call it what it is. I mean, this is ridiculous. Look, I'm not that person that believes that if you're in your 80s that you can't be effective. I know a lot of people in their late 80s, early 90s that are very still together and can give advice and still function and use. They're not going to, do a Spartan Ironman run, but maybe they will in their age bracket. Who knows? God willing, I hope to do that. But all I'm saying, but they're still there cognitively and they can give wise counsel and sage advice. And so, but this is not the guy. I mean, with all due respect, I mean, I'm saying as respectfully as I can. I'm not being partisan about this. This is not the guy, and it's shameful. Even though I don't care for him, his policies, the way he's behaved, the deception, any of that stuff. But still, it's not right. I mean, and it's unfortunate that his family allows him to go through this.
So what's going on here?
Well, he's a useful puppet
For now, but what I want to know is the debate. Is the cheap fake going to be going on during the debate? Okay, we're going to take a break, and we will be right back with more on Sidebar. This is Sidebar. Hey, Salo. I didn't acknowledge you. You're here. You got to tell everybody where to go to find us.
SidebarTV.com. I want to thank, because I was not a big fan myself of TikTok myself. I'm not a big fan of TikTok. I don't know why. Probably because of how it started, dancing videos, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think now it's getting better. There's more business on it. There's more political commentary, more people producing different types of content. I need to reframe my brain to get into a little bit more. But in the posts that we do, we get a lot of comments and we get a lot of shares and we got a lot of people that hate on it also because
great.
we're all different. And it's kind of exciting. Like you guys say all the time. That's what we need to do. We need to provoke conversation. I was telling you guys today right now, a few seconds ago, that there's a new store from China that's coming into San Antonio, Vizio or something like that. And they posted it and I put a joke. I'm like, yeah, I heard that everything that they're selling there has got some type of China surveillance.
They didn't like that, huh?
I have, at the moment, like 34 responses about Trump. People hating on me that I'm a Trumpster, that I'm like, wow, emotional are you? But anyway.
In defense of China.
Yeah.
Well, this is, but so look, I'm glad you actually brought that up. I mean, this is where I continue to advocate. We have to get away from tribalism. You got to get to the point where, like I've said before, Trump deranged syndrome, very real, very real. Trump euphoria, very real. Where he does no wrong and he walks on water and stuff, which is
I think
not
that's
true.
where I'm at.
You're
Not
at the
joking, not
euphoria?
joking.
Well, then you
Self-diagnosis, not joking.
Yeah. Well, but I'm just saying, and let's just get to calling balls and strikes, but we have to come to an agreement on what we want as a country. What do we want in our culture? Culture just meaning the way we do things. How do we want to do things? And now I know we're going to get into the 10 Commandments in Louisiana and the way we operate and whether kids can have surgeries and all this other, all that part falls into that category of what do we want in our society as the norm. And what would the norm, me growing up, I'm 51 years old, me growing up, the norm was very different than the norm is now. And then my pop, 87, the norm was different then with him as well. So, and we're seeing this, where is it going? So you have to look at the trajectory. That's why George and I are talking about always, often, especially on R-rated Christianity. Where is the church in all this? Where are they in these immoral conversations? Where are they in the persuasion game? Because it's about everyone's trying to persuade somebody.
Yeah.
Whether it's for business, whether it's for a team, whether it's for social aspects, whether it's for to buy this, to do that, to think this way, to vote this way. It's all about and if you're not trying to persuade someone else, then they're persuading you.
Yeah.
Because they've kept you quiet, and then your silence will get somebody else persuaded.
So right.
So you have to be in the arena of persuasion. That's in the arena.
That's
you
the
have
game.
to. Yeah. I don't call it a game like it's fun. It's actually just consequences are great.
Ray Rodriguez says, don't forget the Obama messianic reaction when he was elected. Eddie Matos, thank you for logging on. Also, all voters, James Van Cleve says, all voters and potential voters should be required by law to take and pass an IQ test to vote. Patty K, hi. Alex Daniels, thank you for logging on. The debate, remember when the questions to the debate were given to Hillary by Donna Brazile back then? Scott says, we need term limits in the worst way. A glitch Mitch by Manuel Maldonado. And Carlos says, McConnell isn't running again, right?
Well, I disagree respectfully with the whole IQ test, because then when they raise that test and what other requirement do they put on there? We have a requirement. If you're under 70, your MR, that's an actual term still, mental retardation. Well, then there's a lot of things you can't do. You can't get into a contract. You're treated differently on when it comes to the justice system.
Yes.
So we have that. I mean,
not IQ test. What about Vivek Ramaswamy's passing the test of what's it called? Citizenship. That type of test? Would you
citizenship.
I absolutely believe a citizen. You have to be.
No, to vote.
You have to be a citizen.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But take the test to. Oh, okay, got it.
No. You just
have the rights to become a citizen in the United States.
Yeah, you have to be a citizen.
Citizenship test.
I can't vote in Mexico. Look, Mexico just had a vote. I mean, just had an election, a month ago or 3 weeks ago?
Yeah.
And guess what? They did it all in person. Mm-hmm. They do it on a Sunday, by the way. I was talking to my father-in-law about it because they live in Mexico. They do it on a Sunday.
Yep.
They do it in person, and they count their votes in one day.
Yep.
And they had a president by that evening or the next morning, whatever it was. I think it was that evening. And the first female president of Mexico. And that's it. But we can't do it here. And guess what? I can't go vote in Mexico. Now, my wife can because she's got dual citizenship. Yeah. She was born in California, raised in Mexico. But, I mean, that's not hard to say, are you a citizen of the United States? Yes or no? Show me an ID. Here it is. I mean, this is the what is it? You want to talk about cheap fake or misinformation or whatever? There's nothing racist about it. In Georgia, there's more black people voting in Georgia than ever before, which is a good thing.
Yeah.
Most people want voter ID, requirements because they want to make sure their vote is not drowned out by someone that's not. Especially with this illegal immigration issue we have. So the conversations are shifting. People are waking up. Every state, to credit to Governor Abbott and other governors that supported him, every state now, and probably credit to Joe Biden, he didn't mean to do this, but it was a consequence of it. Every state is a border state now.
Yeah.
They are. And so now they're seeing.
Intentionally.
Well, intentionally because they had no choice. Because where are you going to put them?
Yeah.
I mean, so they have to put them somewhere. And so now people are waking up. I just pray they wake up even more and more because that's, like I said, that issue is the single most important issue in my opinion, illegal immigration.
Well, talking about the fake, what is it called again? The cheap fake.
Cheap fake, I think.
Or whatever it is.
Pump fake.
And
because they didn't make it probably.
Right.
It's cheap fake because they didn't make it. They're like, that's cheap.
It was a mistake at first, I think. Wasn't it a mistake on the part of, Jean-Pierre or whatever it was? It was something else that she meant to say, but then they doubled down on it because they made up a term, I guess. But I still don't see what the strategy is on how that could help Biden win.
Karen, I don't think this is accidental. I think it's very deliberate, very orchestrated, very planned, very thought out. Because remember, she said, and listen to this strategy, and I think she has the intellectual capability, honestly, of about an 8th or 9th grader. I'm not terribly impressed with Karine Jean-Pierre. Yeah, I mean to be critical like that because this woman is dishonest about virtually everything that she says, but she's also a little bit slightly more coherent than Biden. And we need the opposite in a press secretary. We need somebody who clearly articulates the vision of the President of the United States for the country on a regular basis. The United States voters deserve it. Setting that aside, what did she say when she was asked about that? Hey, listen, all we're doing I mean, we're just simply using a term that, I mean, we feel compelled to use the term that the fact checkers are using. And who are our fact checkers? You know, reliable, nonpartisan outfits like the Washington Post or CBS News or NBC News or my favorite, PolitiFact. Yeah, they're totally nonpartisan. And they're using the term. So she's saying, I mean, don't look at me. We're just simply using the term cheap fakes because they did. And you got to look under the hood there. There's this marriage, which should never happen in America. There's a marriage between the federal government and the national media.
Yes.
The national media is basically an extension of the White House, when in fact the charge, the constitutional charge in the First Amendment, is really that the national media stands in the gap, Nico, between the people and the government. They are to protect the people from the BS tendencies of the federal government.
Of any government.
Right? Because absolute power tends to corrupt absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's just a fundamental, look, the founders knew that. That's why you have, separated powers. They knew that too much power in one bureaucracy, in one person, having just come from tyranny under George III, they were particularly sensitive to this. And the national press should stand in the gap. And it's actually operating in the opposite manner. This is very Soviet-like. I shared with Nico, I think it's worse. Because when you look at Soviet Russia, when you look at the USSR, you see that the government took over the media. And so the media became a de facto extension of the government. Here, we see the media tripping over itself, Nico, to volunteer to be in that situation. The government doesn't have to do a damn thing. The media is doing it. So we now have this concerted relationship between the two, and it's hurting the American public. And so I that's why I wondered if this isn't really a continuation of this disinformation governance board that we heard about 2 years ago. Tell the American public they don't really see a terrible economy. They see a wonderfully controlled border.
So I know George and what he meant by this. This doesn't just apply to the Biden administration. This applies to the Trump administration. It applies to future Democrat administration, future Republican administration, future independent administration, whoever is. It applies to anybody, all government. The freedom of press is supposed to be able to say, hey, because remember back when it first happened, when it first was installed, Karen, there wasn't social media. So the citizens needed a press. They needed people to keep people in power honest. It's like, hey, well, I'm going to call balls and strike. I'm going to hold your feet to the fire. I'm going to call your crap what it is. And if it stinks, I'm going to say it stinks. If it's not, I'm going to report it, and the people can do what they want with it. It was almost like a sportscaster. That's not the way it is anymore. So George's point, and I know George would feel the same way too. I'd feel the same way if they were doing this for Trump.
Sure.
I would feel it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. I want the press to call balls and strikes, as we say here, and should be objective, not subjective about what they're reporting. And if I want to read an opinion, I'll read an opinion article. You're not supposed to be not everything's supposed to be an opinion article or an opinion piece. And that's where it seems. And then you have, then Fox does their thing, and then Newsmax does theirs, and MSNBC does theirs, and CNN does theirs. And then people say that they're not biased, but they are. All of them are, and that's whatever. It is what it is. But that's not the intent of what the media and journalism is supposed to be.
And that's the point that Greg Gutfeld made this week, and I thought he made it better than anybody else on this issue.
I didn't see that.
He basically said, look, where were these anti-hoaxers in the Fine People hoax? Where was CBS News and NBC News and PolitiFact?
In the what?
In all of the actual hoaxes that happened during the Trump administration.
Oh,
right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, there's
so
no coming back.
Actually
Russia hoax and all that stuff.
exactly. So this is very selective.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'd love to see the media be fair across administrations, but in fact, they're picking and choosing. They're picking and choosing an administration that is ideologically the same as they, and they've thrown in a lot with the Biden administration. So we have this concerted, integrated left-wing federal government and media apparatus right now. And Greg Gutfeld pointed out the inconsistency that they during the Trump administration, when you actually add real hoaxes, like what did he call them? The Fine People hoax. Remember that? And the drinking bleach hoax, and the Koi Pond hoax, and the migrant kids in cages hoax, and the Border Patrol migrants whipping other migrants hoax. How about the lab leak as a conspiracy? I'm particularly part of this conspiracy. The lab leak is a conspiracy hoax. Remember that? And the Russian collusion hoax. See, and on and on and on. These were legitimate hoaxes, and they weren't cheap. A lot of money went into them. Where was the media then? And Gutfeld pointed out this inconsistency. But you know where this is going to go, right? the average left-wing operative would say, well, I'll take that as a badge of honor.
But see, this is where I'm glad that podcasts are doing what they're doing. And you're seeing podcasts because people want to go to these. They're being drawn to these different voices out there to
find the
talk.
truth.
Well, exactly. And what I'm hoping that comes from this, and it's not what the left wants, is for people to have a thirst and a hunger for truth. Whatever it is. Look, let people that are progressive or left argue your point. Win in a debate. Let's get into the town square. Give me your polity, your set of ideas, advocated by your group of individuals, of politics, and then try to affect the affairs of others. That's what politics means, right? Set of ideas advocated by a group of people to affect the lives of others. That's what politics means. We automatically go to partisanship, but politics means that set of ideas advocated by a group of people to affect the lives of others. We're all involved in politics, to include the church, to include everybody is. So let the media just give the information, report what people are, and then let each side or sides or anyone in between make your case, and then get into in Athens, right? Get in there and make your apologetics. Apologia means to give a defense. Give your apologia for your side, and then be persuasive. That's how we run this country. It's not by force. And we're getting there. And this is where communism comes in. Our founding fathers decided to set up this government and the culture of this country to have the art of persuasion, that I'm going to persuade you to vote for me. I'm going to persuade you to implement these set of ideas because they're going to bless the most amount of people. I'm going to work on persuade. We're not there anymore. Now it's force. What about happened with if you don't get vaccinated, we're getting tired of you, and this is going to happen. You can't spread this, and you can't do that, and it's not going to do this, and there's no harm here. I mean, the BS meters were off, and all the fact checkers, I haven't seen one story on any fact checkers being fired during the COVID stuff. There wasn't one fact checker fired.
My brain's going to explode because I have so many questions, not only about the debate and the questions, because that leads back to the press giving the questions to Hillary Clinton, but we've got to take a break. Please stick with us. We will have more, and hopefully your questions will be answered too. It's all coming up next on Sidebar. WOAI. We are on the radio now, but we're also on social media.
Yes, and we'll continue. And the after party or after show, what do we call it? I don't even know. After show, something like that. In the George, in the year of 2024, I think it's the year where most of the conspiracy theorists are right. So I'm still stuck to when Biden came into office. I'm still saying, you think he'll make it to the presidency? You think they'll be for their convention? You think they're going to take him out? You think they're going to change him for somebody? You think so? Or do you think they're still going to run it?
Even before that, I'm wondering if he's even going to make it to the debate.
Yeah, because I like 2 years ago, I told you guys, I don't think he's going to make it to the next elections. And are they waiting for something?
Nico, I think a lot rides on this debate because of that issue. If Biden pulls an imaginary chair issue, event at the debate, if he is, he's not stuttering, because the White House tried to come out and say, well, he used to have a stuttering problem when he was young.
Oh, yeah,
this
I remember
is just kind of sort of a resurgence, a casual resurgence to those symptoms. This isn't stuttering, Nico. He's not stuttering. He's got slurred speech. He'll literally combine a bunch of words into a completely incoherent phrase. So if you see a lot of that at the debate, if you see him just literally get catatonic and just sort of stare into empty space, this debate, it's going to force their hand, and I think it would happen at the convention.
It's going to show a lot of things.
But do they let it happen?
Yeah.
Or
if they've got somebody waiting.
Or do they do what they did? Apparently, I mean, again, I shouldn't say they. I don't know for sure, but there was a different Biden during the State of the Union address.
Yeah.
I mean, he was obviously forceful. Hey, he's back. He's not back. I mean, obviously that was a glitch.
Yeah.
I mean, he was yelling at everybody. There was no unity. There was no adult in the room. And it was weird. But whatever. And he yelled, and that's fine. I'm okay with yelling sometimes when it's appropriate. But that's all he did. He was on one mode.
Brother, you could see it.
Yeah.
It's a combination of deteriorating mental, cognitive faculties, and frankly, drugs. I mean, this is a nasty cocktail. And so you have a person who knows, because Biden knows. Some of them's there. He knows that he doesn't have the grasp. Somebody go back and look at the debate between him and Sarah Palin on October 2nd of 2008. Look at Joe Biden at that debate. Mm-hmm. The dude was smooth.
Yeah, he was.
Articulate.
Yep.
I mean, he was full of crap, but he was smooth. He was articulate. He had total command of his very carefully orchestrated facts. I mean, he was even likable.
Some would even say that he beat Trump during the presidential debate.
Yeah.
Trump was just pissed. I mean, he was.
And he had COVID.
Yeah,
sure. And then
remember that
the laptop hoax came out. But if you look at that Joe Biden, that was 16 years ago, Nico, and you look at him now. I mean, he is a very faint shadow. And you see a guy who knows he's losing it. Typically, elderly people who are losing control of their faculties like that. It's very frustrating. And so there's these wild swings between trying to reassert control because they know they're losing control. And you can see it. You can just see it. And only a delusional individual would say everything is totally fine. I think that's grotesque and terribly insensitive to this man. As much as I don't like Joe Biden, my heart breaks for him because he's being used and abused.
George, for somebody that doesn't know, what type of drugs does a person like that need to have those moments? Because I don't know anything about drugs or medicine.
Well, I mean, any classification of upper, really, because they're trying to heighten his, they're trying to heighten his responses to external stimuli. So any upper would fall. I mean, the issue is the dosage. You don't want to overdo it because then you got somebody literally climbing out of their skin and acting all Tourette's on you, But any classification.
And just so people don't know, man, just as a reminder, George worked for Merck for years in pharma. And he's a chemist. He's a trained chemist, and you actually worked, as you call it, on the bench and in the laboratories and did studies. So you actually brought the
in my
drugs
early
to market,
years. I was an analytical chemist, and then I got into pharmaceutical chemistry and in the clinical side and then on the manufacturing side. Mm. But Salo, I mean, he's got a personal doctor who attends to his needs 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Any stimulant properly administered. And then, again, we don't have any information on exactly the nature of his...
Except those bags of cocaine that they found.
And there's that, yeah. Do we... I don't want to... Does anyone know who's listening? Do we actually have any report that suggests at all any kind of diagnosis at all from the White House that this man might have any kind of official senile condition? I don't think so. So it's a best guess. But sure, you could do that. Yeah, you can get somebody on stimulants and get them to perform for...
I think a lot of people, like, for this debate are not thinking, man, they're going to debate they're going to talk about the issues. I don't think they're thinking like that. They're thinking, man, all conspiracies, we're going to find out if they're real in this one. We're going to find out their temperament. We're going to find out how the media is handling this, how they're manipulating debates.
But Alex said, one of our viewers says, I'm still trying to figure out why President Trump agreed to this stacked deck anyway.
Yeah. At first I thought, Alec, I get where you're coming from. And Nico, I know Nico's actually been in political debates. So you're the authority on this, brother. But I would say, what was Trump going to do? I mean, I think
choice.
He's got really, what's he going to say?
There's no other avenue.
Politically, I don't think he had a choice. And now stepping back, I think, frankly, it's brilliant. Even with these crazy rules.
What are the final rules? They kept changing them. What are the final rules?
No, I mean, so there's obviously no audience. CNN is moderating, and I think that's insane. Jake Tapper and Dana Bash. I mean, it's going to be 3-on-1. Everybody knows that. It's timed. If you start talking into your opponent's time, they'll literally shut you off, shut off the microphone.
Biden will have the questions already. Well, I mean, come on.
Yeah, there's some question about that. But who knows what the topics are going to be? I don't know that we know at this point.
I just think everybody's going to be frustration on the topics that they're going to choose to talk about.
But how is that stacked against them? I don't have a problem with those rules. No audience, timed, and mic off when your time's up.
I don't think.
Because I can't stand the way debates are. I mean, I've criticized them. You guys have heard me. Debates, there's no yelling matches, and everyone's trying to throw a zinger out there. I wish they had more time, no audience, more time, and then turn your mic off when you're done. Hey, your mic's going off in 10 seconds. Hurry up.
Yeah, I agree. Because
they start yelling over each other, and then, I mean, if you're going to fight, sign the waiver and go fight outside.
When they said that, I thought they were protecting Biden because he's going to get distracted if Trump starts talking.
It's the selection of the questioners. I mean, these people are blatantly hyper-partisan.
See, I don't care. I mean, it doesn't matter who asked me the question because the answer is the answer. Matter of fact, they're taking a chance because when Trump has done CNN town halls, he took charge of that town hall, and that girl was an intelligent woman. But his charisma, he took charge of that. So you can actually make someone look better if you're not careful.
I'm not saying that you shouldn't be subjected to opponents' tough questions, even partisan questions. I welcome that. Whatever. I'm saying that they're not going to follow up on Joe Biden when he throws out a bunch of bull. I promise you they're going to be, quote unquote, fact-checking Trump. It'll be totally...
What I would do, I'd call that out at the beginning. I already know how this is going to go.
You know Trump will.
You guys don't like me. We don't like you. You're going to ask the questions. I'm sure you're going to try to protect Joe. Now that people can see it, I'm glad to accept this challenge because to answer the question you want to answer, I'm glad. But now for everyone to see on your audience, you're going to see how you are. So I hope you behave. I'm going to do my best. How much time do I have left? 15 more seconds before you cut me off. Here's my 15 more seconds. I mean, you can... Really,
he does know how to interject other things that he wants to talk about.
Yeah, but he hasn't been disciplined in the past.
True.
Trump used to irritate the crap out of me, and I'll criticize him when it's appropriate. And he's
the last Biden, Trump was horrible.
The what?
The last Biden, Trump.
Trump did horrible.
Yeah.
Trump did horrible. That was his to lose, and he lost it. Yeah. Biden didn't win it, in my opinion, and that's not because I don't like Biden. I'm just looking at what I saw. Trump lost that one. That's my opinion. So Trump needs to be very, very disciplined. And his demeanor needs to be the way it is now. When people are talking, he's not doing tweets. I mean, he's different. Whether this trial kind of tempered him, because now he's even more, because before he was a fighter, now it's a different type of fighter. And so, I don't know. He's just different. Let's see what happens. He could flub it all up in the debate, and then we're over here, cussing him out when it's all done because we're frustrated. Who knows? But let's see what happens. I think this could be a wonderful opportunity for him to really shine if he handles it right.
I think you can expect to hear the terms convicted felon over and over and over again. They're going to try to put him on a defense. And Trump can't possibly not be ready for that. I mean, he knows that's coming. He knows how they're trying to position this whole thing. So frankly, there's no excuse for Trump not to be ready, in my view. My goodness gracious. They did say that Biden is being carted off to, quote unquote, debate prep.
It's been 50 years in politics. What debate? I'm not saying you don't prep for a debate. You prep on the facts.
Maybe on
suggestions on how to present something. But this guy should be an experienced debater by this time. I mean, he's a lawyer, whatever, quote unquote. I mean, he's been in Congress.
He's Polish.
And he was
he's
an
Chinese.
Experienced debater.
He's French.
He used to be.
I'm telling you, go back to that October 2008 debate with him and Sarah Palin.
He did
There's
well.
some clips out there that are 3 to 5 minutes long. But I mean, geez, he can't even tell it's the same man.
There's no need to bring it up, but do you think that Trump will even bring up the fake laptop? that
Well, he should.
Biden.
I think he needs to bring it up the right way. He needs to bring it up the right way. And so
that was part of the debate last time.
I think it helps him that there's no audience, because it's not like this is going to be a stacked deck on either side. No, I don't want to be distracted by
That's
cheering.
sort of your mantra, though, isn't it? I would say, hey, and you're kind of stealing that a little bit from your dad. You can do anything. You can say anything. It's just
as long as you say it right. My pop. Thank you for bringing that up, George. My pop taught me a lot of things, because I used to get all pissed off and want to tell teachers off, and I want to defend it myself and defend other people. I guess it was instilled. It was kind of natural, innate in me to defend people and advocate. And he said, son, first of all, he always told me to be respectful. He goes, you can say anything to anybody, whether it's the president of the United States or the principal of your school, as long as you say it right. Yeah. And I never forgot that. And I've taken that into trials, into heated debates and discussions and advocacy against judges and prosecutors and defense attorneys when I was a DA. I mean, so just it served me well.
And even anger. You can even express anger, but it's how you express anger. I think what Trump ought to do, and he ought to, because some of the lawfare against Trump is deeply disturbing. It's immoral and angering. But there ought to be a way for him to channel that anger in a way that Americans can relate to. He doesn't want to seem like a lunatic, but he needs to tap into that, because I think a lot of the American population is angry because they've personalized it. They see that it could come back on them. Trump needs to find a way to tap into that. And I think that's really important.
Well, but he handled it one time in an interview, and he says it's an honor to be persecuted, essentially, for the American people. And, you know, it's an honor. I mean, so I'm different. I worry about my family. I don't worry about me. Those are the answers he needs to say. It's like, look, there's experts, legal experts on both sides of the aisle that criticize this. And so I'm not going to sit here and debate this with you. People can have made up their own mind. I'm not going to change it right here. I'm innocent. I was innocent, and this was obviously a very swayed and
they made him a martyr. Yeah. And he's embraced it.
Yeah, and then he needs to. Yeah. And then move on. And answer it. Don't ignore it. Answer it, and then move on and get to your answer and make your points and keep pressing the point. And don't let them change the subject. Go back to the point. So
I don't know.
I think he has an opportunity here.
I don't think we're going to get beyond January 6th very far on questioning. I don't think we're going to get beyond this convicted.
But that's the easy one.
They're going to keep coming back and back.
Please update me. Do you know of an indictment that I don't know? Because I got plenty of indictments. Maybe I missed it, and they can turn it around. Have I been charged for insurrection? Oh, I haven't. That's because I'm not guilty of it. What's your question now? Are you debating me, or is Joe debating me? I mean, there's ways like that he can handle it to really make them look stupid if he wants to.
Okay, we have one more segment. Stick with us. We'll be right back with more on Sidebar.
With Rugged.
Saulo, they can go to sidebartv.com to find out what platform they want to choose.
Yes, your favorite platform. I love what's going on in X. X is good. Do you you don't follow anybody on Facebook, stuff like that? You know what Futurism is? Mm-mm. It's a organization. They had a magazine that talked about all stuff technology. But since since Elon Musk bought Twitter, man, they hate on him so much. But there was one guy last week that was starting to speak on how he's changing the game for news and YouTube, that Elon Musk is going to capture everything, streaming, like stuff that YouTube is doing, what TikTok is doing. He's going to bring it to X, and it's going to be amazing. So I'm hopeful that he's
writing a lot of stuff on AI, aren't they?
Yeah.
Where that's going to go, what the limits of AI are. Yeah.
There's so much stuff that you can do now with AI.
Scary.
I'm kind of scared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Changing reality. I mean, we don't have to worry about that because we don't see any of that going on in America. So. Thank goodness.
Until they get a video of you or an audio of you saying something that wasn't you.
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I've
looking for
always-
a chair.
Yeah.
The AI thing is great because it makes dumb people look smart sometimes. But there are some times when I watch the news and I'm like, that couldn't be any dumber. And I wish that I could remember what I was watching the other day. And I was thinking it was 4 talking heads. It wasn't like Fox or anything like that because I don't have cable. But
Have you seen Trump and Obama rap?
no, I haven't
There's
seen
a
any of
video of
that.
Obama and Trump rapping. They're rapping a song and they're making jokes, racist jokes.
my gosh.
But it looks so real. And
Yeah.
I'm like, and there's some glitches in, but when you look
It's
at it, I'm
so
like, first of
real.
all, AI wrote the song. AI created the beat. AI made their faces move and
Right.
I'm like, wow.
It's
far,
so
it's too
bizarre. But this was actually real. This wasn't some made up thing from AI. It was a panel, and one of the girls on the panel said that the founding fathers were probably rolling over in their graves right now, thinking of how unconstitutional it was for Louisiana to require the 10 Commandments be displayed in every public school classroom. And I was thinking, how is this person saying this? One, isn't it, weren't we based on Christian, beliefs? And 2, has anybody read the 10 Commandments, and which one is it that they are so upset about?
The first 4.
that-
They're upset about the first 4. The first 4 are religious, faith in nature. The last 6, nobody really complains about.
Okay, so they're okay with the thou shalt not kill,
Yeah,
but they're
steal, covet, bear false witness, all that stuff.
How is this ruffling feathers, and how many times do we have to go with this religion and school separation, and how it's misunderstood sometimes?
Yeah, George and I we've done full shows on this multiple times over the last 5 years, but it needs to be talked about more. The separation of church and state is from a letter from President Thomas Jefferson in 1801 to the Dansbury Baptists, and he's thanking them for their support and their prayers. And the context of his letter, it's not in any statute, it's not in the Constitution, it's not in the Bill of Rights, nowhere, is we don't want the government impeding on our right to worship. So the separation is to keep your government out of my faith, not keep my faith out of your government. But it's been bastardized over the years, and it made its way into case law, and then they redefined what the intent and the context was of that in that letter from President Jefferson at the time. And so that's how it's become quote unquote law, even though it's not in the founding documents. And go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, it started, and I know we've talked about this, but people who are listening may not understand. This actually started with a Supreme Court majority rule in Everson versus the Board of Education in 1947. So this improper interpretation of the separation of church and state has legal basis. And unfortunately, it goes back to Everson in 1947. The Supreme Court Justice Hugo Black wrote for the majority of the court and described the separation of church and state as the notion that someone can't express their religious convictions in public. That's the problem. And so this really turned the whole notion of separation of church and state on its head, and it's been improperly understood, and it became a thing. And of course, it ultimately culminated in the extraction of prayer from schools in 1962 at Everson versus Vital.
Engel.
I'm sorry, Engel versus Vital in 1962. So now you can't have prayer in schools, and on and on and on and on. And you've just seen this sort of erosion of the expression of Christian faith in the public square since then. And that's terribly unfortunate because that is not at all.
So I have a mixed feeling. So I'm a very devout, unapologetic, proud follower of Christ, and I advocate that. And I've done from prison ministry to men's groups and men's conferences. And then, of course, I started my own home with my children, and my wife and I do that. And so I like to talk to people about faith because ideas have consequences. And, just religion to me just means what you believe and what ideas you want to live by, what's your worldview. And so I love to have conversations about that, and I love to discuss that and go back and forth with it. So we look at Congress. Moses' depiction is above Congress because he's the first lawgiver. Well, God is, but through Moses, right? So there's history there. So there's a historical context that then roots us to a Judeo-Christian founding. The 10 Commandments, last time I checked, were in the Supreme Court. They're actually displayed in the Supreme Court or behind one of the doors or one of the walls. So we can go over and over again. Congress, the People's House was actually used as a church early on, and we've gone through the declarations in 1854 and 56 and the other one in 52 or whatever was that third one, where Congress actually made these strong declarations of our Judeo-Christian roots. So all that being said, if you don't want the 10 Commandments, then you better be advocating to take the trans flag out also, or the LGBT flag, or not celebrate Pride Month. Because you can't even say Merry Christmas anymore. You got to say Happy Holidays. So everybody else. So once again, the Christian faith gets treated like a piñata, and we allow it. So the church is to blame. George and I come down hard on churches. Not every church. There's some churches doing it right, but the church, the body of Christ as a whole. You get what you sow, right? Reaping and sowing. So you've sowed weakness, and you're going to get trampling, and you've been crapped on this whole time. So that's one thing. So the fact that the 10 Commandments, those are good things to live by. If you want to take out the first 4, I get it. If you're an atheist, agnostic, Hindu, Buddhist, Islamic person, whatever. but there's other religions influencing our schools. And the trans LGBT movement is basically a religion. BLM Incorporated was a religious cultist movement at the time. So you better argue for all of it to stay out, right? But what historically has rooted our country in our academia? It's been a Judeo-Christian set of ideas. You didn't have to accept Christ as your savior. It was you weren't called to evangelize. The establishment clause says the government's not going to establish a religion. You're not freedom. You're freedom of religion. You're not freedom from religion, meaning that you're going to be exposed to religious ideas, but you don't have to acquiescence to them. You have a choice still. So I can give you that historical context and talking about what set of ideas did our founding fathers have, and they were Judeo-Christian, whether you like it or not. And we can spend 2 shows talking about the evidence that supports that. On the flip side, what is it really going to do? So you're going to put 10 Commandments in the school board and then say, okay, that's going to Louisiana's crappy school system. They're literally at the bottom, and they're ranked the last in all their schools. Now, is this a start for the governor from what I hear? Great. Let's start somewhere. Let's start changing the ideology. You can't advocate them, but at least have them there to remind you. And maybe it's planting a seed. If you got these other flags up, have the 10 Commandments up. I don't know how you win that argument if you're on the other side.
I think that's right. I think the way you said it is right. I don't think
it doesn't take the church away or the family's responsibility away, that you have to raise your child still and be bold and teach them how to defend their faith.
They're under no
persuaded by
this is going to lead to some dramatic change in their educational performance. But you're right. I think that's the right way to think about it, that it plants a seed and that it does have instructive value. And the reality is that the 10 Commandments have a long, long connection to America's common law system. And there's significant historical and moral value as it pertains to the founding of the country. And so it's completely appropriate. Look, the ACLU is already indicated that they're going to sue. They're going to go back. They're going to go back to the 1947 separation of church and state, which we just mentioned, Everson versus the Board of Education. They are going to go back, I'm sure, to Engel versus Vitale in 1962 with pulling public prayer from schools. In that case, it was teacher-led prayer, nevertheless. And they're going to go back to November 17th, 1980 in Stone versus Graham. The Supreme Court found that a Kentucky statute, I think it was Kentucky, Karen, I don't think it was Louisiana, it was a Kentucky statute requiring the posting of the 10 Commandments in public classrooms was unconstitutional because supposedly it violated the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. And they found that it lacked any kind of secular legislative purpose, and therefore it could not be posted. And so the ACLU is going to make the same arguments. I do think they're fighting an uphill battle, Louisiana is. I think it's unfortunate. I think it is. The idea that unless it expresses some sort of secular legislative purpose, according to the court in 1980, that it can't be posted is absurd. It's incredibly narrow. Says who? And since when, I'm just curious, Nico, since when, and Patrick's not here, but maybe you can weigh in on this, since when does the United States Supreme Court have the authority to weigh in on how states govern religious matters? I'm not, where does the constitutional authority come from? These are questions that can't really be answered here, but these are questions that Americans ought to be asking. The Constitution protects the free expression of your religious
But my point is, but then it needs to be the same way with any other flag. If it's not your state flag or the United States flag, no other flag should be in the classroom. And we even talked about Frank Rodriguez, remember a while back?
Yes.
He lives out the homosexual lifestyle, but he's advocating, goes, the only flag that represents me is that flag. And he pointed to the United States flag. He said, that's the only flag that should be flying in a classroom. And I know you got to respect him for that. I mean, he really made the rounds. I haven't heard his name in a long time, so I don't know what he's doing or what advocacy he's involved in now. But he really made a point, and he went viral back then. Remember, I think we talked about this, 6, 7, 8, maybe a year ago. I don't know when it was. But and you got to appreciate him because he's coming from a position of, look, I'm in that community, but yet this is not what schools are supposed to be about. Let's go back to reading, writing, arithmetic. Keep politics out of school. Yes, keep religion out of school. But there's some set of ideas that we have to teach our kids. Don't steal. Where'd you get that from? I don't know. I mean, don't covet. Don't do this. Don't lie. Don't assault kids. I mean, you're going to have some moral framework, which I always argue is your state penal code has to govern your behavior. Something has to govern your behavior. Now, I can discuss, debate, whatever. I can tie in the penal code to mostly Judeo-Christian ideas. Again, you don't have to accept Christ as your savior.
Yeah,
but
good point.
when you break these Judeo-Christian ideas, stealing, coveting, raping, killing, murdering, not killing, murdering, then usually a society goes to hell in a handbasket.
But I mean, fight it from a historical value perspective, right?
That's the position to take.
Go ahead.
No,
I was just going to say,
Karen.
we're going to wrap it up in about a minute.
All right.
There is this. Oh, sorry.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead,
say,
George. Take the last
there's
30 seconds.
I'm getting out of here.
Hurry up.
Historical value, not just that it formed the common law of the United States, but that it was in the earliest, and we just don't have time to discuss it here, but we have in other forums, it was in the earliest states' constitutions.
Yeah.
There's incredible political value. There's a book out, it's been not out now, it's been out for a while, by Donald Lutz and Charles Heinemann called American Political Writing During the Founding Era. And it talks about this inextricable connection between the United States, the founding of the country, and the Bible in its earliest history.
Well, look, let's continue this conversation. We'll talk about the amnesty and the people, that we wanted to talk about during the show. We'll talk about, I guess, as many of these anti-Israel protesters from Colombia. Their charges have been dropped. There's a lot we can do. We can answer questions. So type in. Sal will be looking at the question board. Thank you for joining. Please share this with someone you think may enjoy it. And God bless you and have a wonderful weekend. All right.
I think we should
conduct.
Well, I know we're going to start the new topic about all those new voters that Biden's going to allow, and I want to get into that. If you could just go back over the book, 1984, and Orwell, and because that it's so simplistic, and I just cannot get my head around that the stuff that's happening with the Biden administration, like the emperor's new clothes, is continuing to happen. And I just want to know, when is it going to stop working? When will are people waking up? Are they tired of it? Why do these cheap fakes, why do they keep saying these things if people aren't eating it up?
Well, I mean, ignorance is not bliss, it's dangerous.
No, I get it.
And then when you combine ignorance with an agenda, then it's catastrophic. And I've said that often, and it just holds to be true. So when the pain visits more people, then people will judge how much pain they will tolerate. And as we say, when the pain of staying the same exceeds the pain of changing, then you change. And so people will think about, okay, how many times have you heard people say, like, I voted Democrat my whole life, and I'm voting Republican now. And it's not about the label, it's the ideas under the label. Like, I really got to get back. I really want to encourage people to talk about ideas with people. If you're going to persuade someone to do something different, you can't go against their sacred cow. I mean, some people, their identity is in their party, Republicans, Democrats, whatever. My identity is in Christ, obviously, right? I mean, that's just me. But my ideas are biblical in nature, and I think that they're tested true and true, and I'm happy to debate them or discuss them with people to show that. But so I talk to people about ideas. And, you hear people all the time. When I was younger, I was more liberal, I was more left or whatever. And then as I've gotten older, they talk about it, and then they can explain why. They have kids, they're earning more money, they're in the professional field, they're doing this, they're doing that, they understand the government more. They're not just, partying on weekends and just making enough money for the weekend. I mean, their goals have changed, and they have responsibilities typically. I mean, hopefully you hope that. So you just need to talk about ideas. So people need to educate themselves. It seems like more people are getting educated, and it seems like it's not as much of a, what's the word I'm looking for? Nah, it's not no, but what is it, like
Taboo.
Thank you. That is what I was looking for. Taboo to say something that sides with a conservative or that supports Trump, 50 Cent, all the other people that we've talked about.
Yeah.
A lot of these people are being more overt and saying, look, it's just Jake Paul, Logan Paul, all these other people that are in that Gen Z influencing world, and other people too. Joe Rogan has not said he's supporting Trump, but he definitely criticizes Biden. I don't know who's going to vote for if everything he criticizes is Biden's ideas and Democrat ideas. He's not a Democrat. He's a libertarian, I believe. And he's open to conversation. So, I mean, even Bill Maher, even though he says that he's going to vote for Biden, he doesn't.
He's actually said that.
Yes, he doesn't compliment anything that Biden has done. So I don't know what I call bullshit on it. But whatever. I mean, no one's going to know what he does in there. But I can't fathom it the way he criticizes Biden and the woke left that has taken over the Democrat Party, as he argues. So I don't know. So we need to educate ourselves and have conversations and be comfortable having uncomfortable conversations, but learn to do it respectfully.
Do you think it's dumb to ask everybody? I do it myself, to ask everybody if they are registered and if their registration is current. I do that with my entire family and anybody that I know, because I've just always been that way.
No, I mean, a significant portion of Americans are concerned about election integrity. This isn't some conspiratorial nonsense. It's not a small number. It's over half of Americans, at least, are concerned about this. And there are serious questions to be asked and answered. There's a lot of nutty research on it that's been done out there, and there's some legitimate research. I think the best research on it is done by the Heritage Foundation. They actually have an election integrity database, and they've Hans von Spakovsky is his name.
What the hell?
Hans von
Say that 3 times.
Oh, I've known.
Say it. No, Salo, say it.
It is challenging.
With your accent.
Biscuits.
Biscuits.
Hans.
Hans von Spakovsky. He's a trained lawyer. He's quite capable, and he's been leading the charge on this at Heritage. You can go to dailysignal.com and look it up, and they've tracked legitimate cases of electoral malfeasance and what's been done about it, what's been ignored, and it's not 2 or 3 cases. I mean, this is significant, and if you add up the number of cases, it could arguably change a vote from what it should be if you didn't have those problems. So it is a legitimate issue, Karen. But getting back to Nico's point, how do you preserve the ability to keep things nonviolent? Because if you can't have discourse, if you give in to ideological fascism and you don't fight for intellectual freedom, if you do that, then ultimately what happens is you end up with violence because you lose those levers. The new normal becomes one of violence. That's ultimately where, if you look at 1984, and I was saying as Nico walked in the last break, it's incredibly prophetic. He talks about the strategies as he see it in Soviet Russia. But if you look at China, North Korea, Vietnam, Cambodia, Cuba,
recently in Venezuela. Yes, even in Ukraine. If you look at each of these, those prophecies play out. It begins with intimidating your people. It's the Olinskian manual, the 12 Rules for Radicals, where he tells his followers to isolate the opponent. Ridicule is the most potent weapon you can have. Ridicule your opponent. Isolate them. Freeze them. And never stop doing it. And so that's kind of what's going on right now, right? What we were just talking about. And the media is perhaps the most powerful arm. That continues. You brought up an interesting point. Don't people get sick of it at some point?
Yeah.
See, at some point, yes, the law of diminishing returns. And they know this. So in every one of those examples that I gave, it stops working because people realize that there's bullshit at play. And they're not going to. How many times can you be told Donald Trump is Hitler before you realize that Donald Trump is actually not Hitler? And people realize, no, he's not Hitler. Yeah, he might be orange. Yeah, he might use some hyperbole. He might exaggerate. But that's not Hitler. And it sure as hell ain't Joseph Stalin. He's not Big Brother from George Orwell. At some point, people say, fuck it. I'm not doing it anymore. I'm not playing this game. Okay, but see, they know that. Then you go to violence. The objective is for people not to push back, like you're saying, not to argue back, not to be persuasive, not to arm themselves with facts and with history. For people to just sort of go along, get buried in these damn screens, be lulled into complacency, and eventually it's too late. And then you have violence.
What do you mean when you say violence? What is that?
Well, if you look at 1984, who's the protagonist? Who's the hero? Winston Smith. And Winston Smith begins by recollecting what happened to his mommy and his daddy. What happened to them? They were hauled away in the first mass purges. So the first step in communism, after the persuasion cycle's over, Nico, is to go after your political enemies. It's go after the dissidents. You have what was called in 1984 and what happened in Russia, the mass purges. There were a number of them where political enemies are arrested. As I say, they're disappeared. They go into concentration camps. They're tortured. Winston Smith is tortured in 1984. Okay, so his parents disappeared. That's the first phase. And then you have things like forced famines. You have obviously controlled information. That's always going on in the backdrop. That's happening in China right now. The social credit system, mass surveillance. Thalo was just talking about artificial intelligence and futurism. These tools in the hands of left-wing ideologues, it's happening right now. But then you actually get into forced famines. You get rations of food. They control the food production and distribution. And so you use famine to control your enemies. This gets
Which
into
there's
violence.
a lot of foreign countries buying up farmland.
I know.
So when LaHood carries on about be persuasive, arm yourself with history and facts, engage anyone and everyone, don't leave anything on the table, don't assume people are lost.
Yep.
That is what preserves our democracy. Dare I say, our constitutional republic. That's what preserves it. That's what prevents. If people ever fall asleep and stop doing it and they say, whatever, I give up, that's dangerous.
Well, they've been asleep, but it does feel like they are waking up. Americans. It feels like it when you see people that would normally have not come forward to say.
Yeah, Argentina woke up,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
El Salvador woke up. Bukele is just now. Bukele is doing what George said. We hope we don't have to get to that point. He talked about the benevolent
God
dictator,
forbid.
and he talked about Portugal, and he talked about that on the show before. And Bukele, look, he's done some amazing things, but at the expense of people's rights. I mean, so we got to still have due process, and even though the bad guys do this, that, and the other thing, there still has to be a process of doing. You have to do it the right way, because then if they can do it the wrong way against the quote unquote bad guys that people don't give a shit about, guess what? They can eventually do it against the good people too, because now you've set that new standard. So. That's always the you just got to be careful. That's all. That's where the Constitution puts that stop guard, that safeguard, and that called due process, fundamental fair play. And that's why many times when people say, how do you represent someone that you know is guilty? Well, first of all, my Savior died for people that were guilty, and I was one of them. So that's one thing. But number two, sometimes you're not just defending the person accused. You're defending the system that is accusing the person accused. Because if that system gets out of... If you're not just defending the person accused, you're defending the system that's accusing the person accused. So there's a system at play, and you've got to make sure that system operates properly. Because if that system goes off the rails, guess what? Everybody on the train goes off the rails and gets killed. And there's some innocent people on that train that get killed. So that's why I'm so passionate about due process and the justice system, and even guilty people, people that I don't like, people that I disagree with, that they're treated right. Fuck this tribalism stuff. I can't stand it. Yes, I'm a Christian, but I'll criticize. We tore into Robert Morris out of Gateway Thursday night, because I think that guy's a lying pedophile. I called him a long time ago, not for being a pedophile, and all the elders in the church that covered up that guy. He should be a convicted felon. He should have either gone to prison or been a registered sex offender for the rest of life. He should have never been a pastor. I'll call that out. Does that mean that Christianity is not true? No, but that shit wasn't right. And all those elders should be held accountable too. It's a bunch of bullshit. This girl was 12 years old. She wasn't a young lady. He was 21. He's cheating on his wife. He's a pastor. No wonder people think Christianity is full of shit, because you got idiots like that, assholes like that, trying to represent. Oh, he did so much good. At what expense? And who are you to decide what's good? You got to do it God's way, not. So I digress. All I'm saying is what's right is right and wrong. And so we don't just side with conservatives. If a conservative is wrong and a leftist or someone who's progressive is right, I'm going to say he's right or she's right. But I'm going to apply a set of ideas to my analysis that are principles. A principle doesn't sway depending on who you want to win. That's not a principle. That's an opportunity. A principle stands true no matter what. A principle applies to you, Karen. It applies to your children. It applies to your spouse. It applies to yourself. Everything. That's a principle. It's never. No, if it's not don't call it a principle. Just call it an idea that you don't mind switching when it's convenient for you.
Wow, that was good. And you can tell when an Alinskyan culture is setting in, because the only principle that matters is fear-based principle. In other words, you're deathly afraid of being targeted. You don't want to be targeted. You want to be called out on social media. You don't want to be the guy that gets thumbs down.
Canceled.
That's like the worst. That's like worse than stage 4 cancer on social media. And that's the problem. It's this fear of being targeted. And so the way you defeat that Alinskyism is, if that's such a word, is that you simply realize that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're attacked. It doesn't matter if you're ridiculed. It doesn't matter if you're targeted. That none of that matters. What matters is the principle at stake, that if you don't speak up, it becomes a generational problem. It's not just you then that becomes irrelevant. It's not just you then that loses the ability to think the way you think, to make the decisions that you want to make. It's your kids, because you're creating a world where they're going to have to live. Your kids are basically going to be enslaved by this. That should keep you up at night.
Yeah.
That should drive you to your knees and pray real hard and get active real quick. Pastors, we think, should be out there. They should be out there. If you look at how America started, pastors, individuals in the pulpit
went out there,
stirred the colonies righteously against the tyranny of King George III. They took a leadership role. They weren't sitting around playing with themselves or the others, in the case of Robert Morris. They weren't doing that. They were out front leading by example. Where are our pastors today?
Well, and speaking of pastors, I think it was our pastor, Dave Tooker, who said this, and I don't know where he got it from. He's well learned.
I was asking that rhetorically, but that's a good answer. Go ahead.
But he says this. He goes, well, what one generation tolerates, another generation will celebrate. Now, I'm not sure where he got it from, but it's true.
Yeah.
So we say, oh, it's not a big deal. And then it turns into a celebration, because now I'm not talking about tolerance of people that differ from you. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about moral flaws. I'm talking about, seriously, the kids getting sex changes at 10 and kids and, being allowed to explore sexually and read books that are pornographic in your school and stealing children's innocence, things of this nature. And then allowing any organization, any cultive movement, wherever it's coming from, to indoctrinate a child outside of the home on ideology and sexuality and whatever you call it, grooming, you call it whatever you want, but there's age appropriate and intellectual appropriate discussions with children. That's why I say I don't know why we have ratings for movies anymore. I really don't understand why we play the bullshit game of G-rated. I don't even know if there's G-rated movies anymore. PG-rated, PG-13, R, and then X and double, triple X, all this other bullshit, or with PG-17 or whatever the hell came out a while back. What the hell does that mean today in our society? We're playing a game. This is a game. And so I think that, and I hope the church grows a pair of church balls and starts getting more involved. I mean, the church as a whole, not individual churches, small c, because there's some that are doing it very well.
Yes.
But I'm just saying, getting back involved, and we have got to decide as a society for sure, what do we want to tolerate? So society has said, and I always remember I used to joke about this, what does society not tolerate? Will Smith slapping Chris Rock. I mean, everybody lost their shit over that. I guess that was our moral standard. But now it seems like people don't want to tolerate men pretending to be women and kicking the shit out of women in women's sports. It seemed the vast majority of Americans are not okay with that, especially when you get into combat sports. Now you're just looking at just abuse and assaults,
Pummeling.
and then all the women's movement that has been wonderful. Because I have 2 daughters. George has 3. You have 2. I mean, I guess that goes to hell in a handbasket. What does it matter? You're gonna get some dude that couldn't make it in his sport, and late in life goes like, screw it, I'm just gonna compete as a woman with my package and my bulge flopping everywhere. And I'm gonna kick the hell out of these chicks, and I'm gonna be celebrated as a woman. That's craziness to me. And that's not partisan to say that, by the way. That's just common sense. That's what I respect about Bill Maher. Bill Maher rails against this, and I'm going to stand right alongside Bill Maher when he rails against pharma and their influence. When he rails against people saying, "Why can't I think and push back?" And no, I'm not going to do this, or I'm not going to do that, or I'm not going to believe in the 6-foot this or the shot this. When he asks questions, and good for Bill Maher to do that. Good for Bill Maher to invite people on his show that disagree with him passionately, and then he has conversations. Good for him. So look, we have got to, as a society, full circle, to decide what are our rules of engagement. That's the bottom line. How are we going to engage our neighbor? What is our goal that brings harmony to, what's the American way anymore? What is the American way? I mean, what is it? Is it just come in through a border that's open and do whatever you want and talk to kids about sex, and you can pretend to be this, you can be a furry, and you can be an animal, and you can do this, and we're going to bring you a kitty box? I mean, that's fucking insanity. I mean, everyone needs to say that. If a young child comes to me, and anyone that says it's okay is full of shit. They're lying. They're pandering, because you would never leave your child in the care, or you don't care about your child, with someone who is an adult furry. We haven't found one yet because it's so new. But I want to see what the 25-year-old furry looks like. What if a kid goes, you know what? I'm not a furry, but I'm a liony. What does a liony do? Well, a liony kills zebras. So you're gonna kill a kid? You're gonna let a kid kill a kid that he thinks is a zebra?
But don't say anything, because...
Well, I'm a lion,
Yeah.
and lions kill zebras. And you look like a zebra, but I'm not a zebra. But you're a zebra to me, and I'm gonna kill... That's what lions do. So you're gonna treat me like a lion? I mean, I look for logical consistency in your set of ideas. And that's why I don't mind debating my ideas as a biblically minded man. But I push back, and we should all push back, respectfully but passionately, on some of these things. So we have a society, George and Karen, Saulo, we have to decide what are our rules of engagement. And I think we're in a struggle right now. I think we're in a societal detox.
Big time.
And we're trying to figure out, wait a minute, why do you think so many people are open to Christianity? Russell Brand.
Yes.
I mean, Jordan Peterson, his wife. Other people are like, wait a minute, there's something, Joe Rogan, there's something to this biblical ideas. I'm not sure if I'm all in with this guy, Yeshua, Jesus, being the Son of God. And I don't know if there's a heaven. I don't know what the hell's going on. But there's something to harmony and peace when you follow these ideas. And then you have an opportunity to talk about Christ to save.
And the fact remains that, again, we ought to be leading the way. The church ought to be leading the way. That's a biblical mandate. We're told to be salt and light. We're told to point the way to the truth and preserve the truth along the way. That's not an option. We don't need a focus group for that. That's scriptural. And so I love what you said. We ought to be pointing out that, man, there's some real grotesque logical inconsistencies here, and we ought to be pointing that out. That's a rule of engagement. Whatever we propose ought to be logically consistent and not inconsistent, so that we confuse people with nonsense. I mean, 1972 Title IX law, that's pretty objectively clear, that women have access to their own, athletic facilities, sports and locker rooms, their own restrooms. And so can the church really sit there and say, well, it's just too political for me to get into that? That's bullshit. I mean, why is it too political to point out the inconsistency that we ought to recognize that women are equal in Title IX and that they have equal access to those facilities? And at the same time, we're told to recognize that somehow, I don't know when this became okay, that a gender dysphoric delusional male can have access to those same facilities. How can you embrace both things at the same time? We ought to be able to push back on that and say that women are real. They're objective realities. They're specially crafted by God for unique purposes.
But even if someone doesn't believe that, women are still unique and different.
somebody doesn't believe what?
That they're crafted by God, even if they're agnostic. You don't have to be a Christian. I mean, I think it means deeper.
No,
something
I'm
to us.
talking from a position of a Christian
Oh,
church
got it.
now.
Sorry, I'm sorry.
From a position of Christian to think.
You don't have to be a Christian to respect and to defend
Exactly.
women. That's all I'm
Yeah.
saying.
Right. Your ethics are simply a playing out of your religious convictions, and they're logical. The Bible's unbelievably logical. And so the church ought to be taking a stand for women because they're real. And as I said, because they're uniquely, and they are specially crafted by God. They fulfill unique and special purposes. And we should take issue that we're being made to believe that they're figments of the imagination.
Well, there was a tweet that I think I texted you. This is years ago. This is back in 2019 when all this was before it turned into the insanity it is today. This guy Stefan, whatever, I can't even pronounce his damn last name, but he says it's interesting that if you don't have a uterus, you can't have an opinion on women's issues, but you can compete in women's sports. I mean, think about that's logically inconsistent. You're not a woman. You can't have an opinion about abortion. You can't have. Don't talk about women's issues. You're not a woman. Okay, but let me just kick your ass in your sport and take away your acknowledgments and take away your scholarships and take away your recognition and beat you up and do whatever. Okay, that's fine. But I don't care about this issue, but I'm just going to kick your ass and I'm going to act like a woman. I mean, that's the logical consistency. Yeah. And this is the discussion, Karen, that should not, and I refuse to make it partisan. I refuse to. Other people may. This is not a partisan issue. This is a logic issue. Now, if your argument is that one party is not logical and the other one is, so be it. Then make that argument. All I'm saying is you don't have to be a Republican to defend women's rights. Matter of fact, it was the Democrat, the liberal, the classical liberal that was championing free speech and all these other things. This is the part that irritates me.
It should be anybody with a brain who's concerned about the integrity of their society, the future of their kids. I mean, I just bring up Christian leaders because we have a wonderful heritage of stepping into the fray, and that ought to continue. We also have an unfortunate heritage of crawling under our desks or under our pews in the church. But fortunately, by God's grace, we've been able to arise beyond that and make some real changes. I always come back to Dietrich Bonhoeffer. He's a moral hero for me as a German Lutheran pastor in 1930s and 1940s, early 1940s Germany, who spoke out vehemently. I mean, the dude was actively opposed to the Nazi regime. Ultimately executed. He was arrested in 1943, hauled off to Flossenburg concentration camp. He was ultimately executed there. And his idea was that, hey, not to speak, I think that's a quote. I don't think I got it directly, but he said, not to speak is to speak, he said. If silence in the face of evil is actually evil itself. So he was accusing the church of being silent. The church is being evil because the church is silent in the face of evil. And he actually said, God is not going to hold you guiltless. And a voice in the wilderness. But look, here we are, 80 years removed, and we're still talking about that kind of courage, which literally changed the world.
Is this just America that's going through this? Because
this is a worldwide. Yeah, this is a
we're
worldwide.
at different stages of it.
Yeah.
Right, we're at different stages of it. But no, this is going on. Look what's going on in England. I mean, look, the Islamic movement is on the verge of taking over England.
Yeah, I understand that. But
they've lost their culture. I mean, I got Gary Hillier, who's a phenomenal lawyer and one of our lawyers in our firm. I mean, he's got the accent. The juries love his accent. I mean, he's a great dude. But he's from UK. I mean, that culture is done.
But I was just talking about, men in women's sports, men going into the, women's restrooms. Is it only in America? I mean, I know that there's chaos everywhere, but it feels like, I mean, did the Olympics let
that weightlifter was in there. Wasn't that weightlifter that lady?
For some reason, I thought that they had denied.
I don't remember.
Trans
I don't know.
Into like.
Sala, what do you think? I know you keep up with that stuff. Yeah, you don't know. Sala doesn't know. Tell you, what we have you here for? Tell. So.
There is one question.
What is it?
That is off this topic, but I didn't want to forget about it. Valerie says, I read somewhere that the Democrats are encouraging and helping illegals to register to vote in states that allow it. Are there some states that allow illegals to vote?
I don't know. I haven't heard of it. Someone needs to educate me on that. I haven't heard it.
Or maybe they're overlooking it. Yeah. I mean, I was like, I haven't heard that either.
Your question is, are there states that that expressly allow that. I don't know that
Okay.
that's the case. Is that happening? Yes,
Oh,
that we
yeah.
know. That's been documented. And the reality is that it's pretty loosey-goosey for registration purposes. And you can literally show up same day and vote. And there's, again, please go to dailysignal.com and look at the work of Hans von Spakovsky and his work on election fraud.
That guy's
What the
guy's
name?
name?
I'm
Who's
trying to
his
keep a straight
mother?
face here, brother.
His mother, shame on her.
Hans von Spakovsky. Yes, he's an exceptional lawyer, and very articulate. Has done really, really great work in this. But Nico made an earlier point just in passing here, and it's not a trivial point. What happens in America tends to spread the world entire, good and bad, and when you see this kind of obsessive, crazy multiculturalism and religious pluralism just gone off the rails. I mean, the UK is losing their cultural heritage.
Yeah.
I mean, literally on a daily basis. If you look everywhere, there's a complete replacement of Christianity with Islam. It's all over the place. I mean, the mayor of London is a Muslim. The mayor of Birmingham is a Muslim. The mayor of Leeds is a Muslim. The mayor of Blackburn is a Muslim. The mayor of Sheffield is a Muslim. Oxford, a Muslim. The mayor of Oldham is a Muslim. I can go on and on and on and on. It's everywhere. And when you see the culture being transformed, now maybe London is saying, maybe England is saying they're okay with that.
Yeah, fine, that's fine.
But the citizenry is not
Yeah,
okay with that.
I was going to say, how can you turn back when they're already in office now?
No, it's fascinating. Look, you got to tip your hat and say there's 66 million people in England, and about 4 million of them are Muslim, and it's a radical, massive transformation.
Well, it's no different than the LGBT
Impressive.
movement. I mean, the percentage versus now it's different now because I think, as Bill Maher once again pointed out, he just went through one show. He just went through the percentage of people that identify with that community, and he just says maybe we're creating our own, you know. And he just made a good point. I'm going to bastardize it, so I won't make the point he made. But Bill was just calling out facts and looking at data, and I thought it was fair to do, and just part of the conversation. Someone can push back. Someone can go back and forth. Why this? Why that? We're afraid to. We didn't want to speak out before. It's always been the same way. Make the same argument. That's fine. But I think Bill was bringing out a data point that should be discussed. And is that okay with our society that we're forcing that? You don't want to force Christianity on somebody, but you can force everything. And see, that's the problem. That's where the Christians have been wussified.
Yeah.
Because we can force everything on everybody else but Christianity. And not even influence you. Forget about force. I'm not for forcing it. Jesus doesn't even force himself on us, you know?
Yeah.
Revelations 3:15-20. He's knocking on the door, and if you open it, he'll come in and dine with you. He's not kicking it open like a SWAT member or like a communist, dictator.
Although he should.
Well, no, but then
Right now.
he'd violate his own rule. I mean,
Right,
He
yeah.
can't do that. He can't
Just
force. Love
joking.
isn't love if it's forced on you. And there's things that God can't do. He can't force love. He can't commit murder. He can't lie, and he cannot be unjust. Those are the things he cannot do. And so he's got to stay consistent with his character. But all that to say is, I mean, we have choices to make. I mean, people can set ideas. We see the result of and the consequence of ideas put in play. We've talked about Hitler, Mao, Stalin, Lenin, and all that stuff. We've seen atheistic. You've seen people always point out from a political side, Democrat-run cities versus Republican-run cities and states. And okay, well, those are data. Joe Biden, 4 years under Joe Biden, 4 years under Trump. Okay, those are data points. Let's make it now make a decision. Which one do you want? And if you want the other one, then so be it. As long as the voice of the people is heard, then so be it. I'm for the voice of the people. If the voice of the people say they don't want this and they want this, then so be it. Then I have a decision to make. As long as it's truly from the people, then I have a decision to make. Do I want to stay in that culture?
Man, can't say it better than that. And that's what I'm saying. We have all this wonderful history we don't avail ourselves of. And we actually think the stuff that we're going through is somehow new and unprecedented. Man, if we would just teach kids what humanity has gone through and how their own country has gotten to where it's gotten. I mean, I'm still stuck. I'm sorry, because you brought it up. You opened a can of worms with me on this issue of transformation of the British culture. It really is absolutely stunning. I mean, it really is. And I don't think we're far from that intersection here in the country. I mean, there's like 3,000 mosques. I'm trying to figure out if it was Robert Spencer where I got these stats. I can't remember, but I'm going to credit him for now. Robert Spencer, he's a great writer. But he was indicating a couple of months ago, carrying on about how there's like 3,000 mosques in England. There's like 130 Sharia courts, legit Sharia courts in England. There's like, and I know you've brought this up with
130.
There's 130
So
Sharia courts.
just so people they don't know, that's where Sharia law is governing Islamic people. That they don't submit themselves to the land.
I know you've made this point with Dearborn before because
law of the
where
land.
it's going.
They say so. Have Sharia courts where Sharia is analyzed, and you make a defense or a prosecution under Sharia, and you
And it's
better
actual
study Sharia.
jurisprudence that's implemented in the
Wow,
policy.
I didn't know that. 130.
So 3,000 mosques, 3,000 mosques in England. I think he said there's 130 Sharia courts. There's over 50 Sharia councils. He indicated that 78% of Muslim women don't work. They receive state support and free accommodations. 63% of Muslims they don't work. They also receive state support in general and free housing. He indicated that state-supported Muslim families with an average of 6 to 8 kids receive free accommodations in England. Now, every single school in the United Kingdom is required to teach lessons about Islam.
This is
So here's the question.
Yeah.
Who voted for this?
yeah.
Where's the proposition
Yeah.
that votes for this?
Yeah.
It's not there.
Yeah.
The citizenry is not on board.
Yeah, wow.
It just happened because politicians thought it was a really great
hold
idea.
on, but
Go
the
ahead.
citizens are on board, George, because they keep voting these pricks in office to do this kind of stuff.
Right.
So I mean, at
but
some point,
I'm trying to tie the concept that you brought up about what Dave Tucker said.
Oh.
Right. Something that's tolerated eventually becomes a
Celebrated.
point of celebration.
Right.
This is the age-old. You can literally kind of reduce all of these arguments to that problem, which is that you allow a behavior to get entrenched. It becomes normalized, and then it's not a stretch to celebrate that which you normalized. And so this transforms cultures. It's not just about the United States. It's going on in France. It's going on in Germany. Germany's in serious trouble. An economic powerhouse that's not just losing its economic fortitude, but it's losing its culture. Certainly going on in Spain right now. We've just talked about Britain. I mean, honor-based abuse cases in England,
Yep.
in France. I mean, they're climbing. In England, I think
because
Spencer
under
said
Sharia, you
it-
have to explain it. Under Sharia law, there can be honor abuse, honor assaults, honor killings. Actually,
No,
their own laws.
He provided the research on this from their own law enforcement manuals. He said that, Nico, it's gone up by more than 60% in 2 years. Wow. And this is a piece that he wrote about 2 or 3 months ago. It was something like 2,600 cases in 2022 versus like 1,600 in 2020. And so he said, and like you said, hey man, these crimes are common in Muslim countries. Like Pakistan and Bangladesh. So the question is this what we want the future to be? How do we push back? Well, know how we got here. Know what the sacrifices were of people who have fought for the freedoms that we have. Let's educate our kids in this stuff, man.
yeah.
For goodness sakes.
well, that's
Do
why
you
you got to
think
vote the right people in office,
vote
like
the
what
right
like what Ron's doing in Florida. Salo, any questions? I know we're going to wrap up here shortly.
no.
Nothing.
Everybody's
Everybody
just going
come.
along and
Okay,
talking
I want-
about what we're
people
talking
can-
about.
Can not have to go along. They can question or disagree or whatever. But we'll talk about executive amnesty. Executive amnesty next week. I know it was on the. I mean, we always have
Yeah.
things on the list, but then we don't know when we get to it. Depends on what
And
topics.
we'll just
go where.
prompt them. It's simply an executive order that is allowed for at least a half a million,
Right.
or rounding down, I think.
But there's
At least-
requirements to it. Yeah.
Right, there's some legal requirements, but the basic requirement is that it's an illegal alien that has been married to a United States
10
citizen
years.
for at least 10 years.
Yeah. And no criminal record.
But in addition to that, it's over 50,000. In addition to that, it's over 50,000 kids that has such a parent.
Mm-hmm.
And so it never ends with that individual.
Yeah.
It just cascades. And this is one of those moves. He's already done that with 1.2 million
but-
others on temporary protected status. This has been going on since he was inaugurated.
Mm-hmm.
At what point, do people care?
Yeah, and whether he can do it or not, it's another story. But it's the promise. It's that false promise. Just like with the school debt. and the student loan debt and all that stuff. He knows he can't do it, but then
what
he can do
an
it.
excellent point. What are Republicans doing about it? They're writing strongly worded letters. And I realize we have a minority in the Senate, but I know we have a paper-thin majority in the House. But bitch all day long. Do
Educate
something.
people. Educate people what you need to do.
Instructively, don't just make noise. How about press conferences? Man, I've been crying about that for years.
I don't know about press conferences. Who watches press conferences? Just the same 10 people that vote. I mean, go on a podcast. Do what Vivek's doing.
All right, fine. Hold a conference. Go on Joe Rogan.
Do whatever. But do what Trump's doing. Trump went on Logan Paul. That was a great move on his part, by the way. I don't know where that went. Solo. But I mean, that was a great move by Trump.
What a great idea. We're swimming in money. I mean, truly, Trump's fundraising's over the top. He was behind Biden in April. I mean, he's now ahead of him. He made up in 2 months. I mean, he's swimming in money. The Republican National Convention as well, or National Committee as well. What are we using this money for?
We'll see. I don't know. Karen, what else? You all right?
No.
Okay.
I was trying to
It's a
remember
little time.
who Trump has gotten to or agreed to speak at the Republican National Convention, some sort of union head, and everybody's saying if that happens and the union head has not said, endorsed Trump yet, but why would you go speak at the RNC?
It's not the AFL-CIO.
No.
That'd be huge if it was. That would be huge.
It's something equally big, some big union.
And out in New York or where?
Yes.
Yeah. He spoke already on the media.
But now he invited them to come speak at the RNC, and they agreed. The Teamsters. I don't know.
Okay, still. That's
a big deal, man.
But this is such a winning topic. I mean, really, if all you know is that the foreign-born population in the United States has tripled since 1970. It's doubled since 1990. It's 40% more just since 2000. I mean, the Center for Immigration Studies, they're conservative. They're putting it at over 51 million people that are foreign-born in this country. I think that's shy. I mean, talk in these terms. Appeal to people. What do you want your culture to be for your kids? I don't know.
Recognizable?
I don't think you need a PhD.
You got to assimilate. I mean, again,
Yeah.
study Rome. It doesn't take much studying. Just do a little bit of education. Study Rome. Rome just was destroyed and fell from within. It is. I mean, Rome was a powerhouse. Rome was amazing, and they're conquering the world, and then they got conquered within their own world.
Well, now I'm depressed. Say something hopeful.
Well, Karen,
Finish us off on a hopeful.
I have nothing
Karen-
hopeful at
Karen
all.
loves you.
Zero. Don't come to me.
Jesus loves you. Jesus is king.
Thank you.
I'll
There you
I'll
go.
get you a
Karen
shirt.
loves
I'll
you.
get you a shirt. Karen loves you. Carlos here. All right, guys. Thanks for joining us. Please share this with someone you think may benefit from it.